Facebook to Cry Dry Tears online. Helping Parents probably online. Waiting for YouTube to get online. YouTube's online, and I think my Helping Parents are mentally ill online. Okay, so we had to take two. They're online, and I'm gonna bring myself in. Okay. Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to my Facebook group, Helping Parents of Mentally Ill Children. Thank you for tuning in. This is 9 o'clock Eastern Time, and we're trying to do that every Sunday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. I'm going to have a guest. And let me welcome you. My name is Bill McPhee. And my claim to fame basically is that when I was 24 in 1987, I was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And I was very, very ill. I was hospitalized 6 different times. I lived in 3 different group homes. I had a suicide attempt, and I was very, very ill. I suffered with depression for 5 years. I was on the couch doing nothing in a deep, deep, dark depression, very, very ill. However, today I'm very successful. I have 3 children, and I was actually publisher of SZ Magazine, which was a magazine on mental illness, and I did that for 23 years, and I'm retired now. And basically what I do now is I promote my book, which is called To Cry a Dry Tear, Bill McPhee's Journey of Hope and Recovery with Schizophrenia. And I basically started this group to help parents of mentally ill children navigate, and just to do that, and to have a real interesting guest every time, and really just have fun and be educational. We want to provide hope, education, and understanding around mental illness. So before I go any further, I'd like to bring in my guest. I'd like to bring in John Lilly, and John goes by John Emotions. And basically, a little bit about John is John has a podcast, and it's called Bipolar Style. And you can find more about John at bipolarstyle.com. And John's going to talk a little bit about his son and himself with bipolar. And John's from Louisiana in the United States. And John, I'm coming from you from close to Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada. I live in Fort Erie, which is right at the mouth of the Niagara River. And so I'm looking out at the Buffalo skyline right now, the lights and everything like that. And John, like I said, comes from Louisiana. So what's happening in Louisiana, John?
Hey, thanks for having me, Bill. I appreciate you taking the chance to have another person with a mental illness on your show. Much appreciated. Things in Louisiana got cold. It's back to warm again. It'll be cold again. As you can probably tell, I don't have a Louisiana accent. I'm originally from California. And mental illness had something to do with my journey and why I ended up here. But generally speaking, when I look out my windows, I see resurrection fern on the oak trees and things like that. So it's really beautiful, lots of greenery, and it's a good place for to rest your mind. Really.
I have to tell the audience, John, it was kind of funny because when I was setting up to do this live streaming, basically we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook to Cry Dry Tear, and we're on my Helping Parents Mentally Ill stream. And I had Jason here trying to help me a little bit with figure some technical things out, and Jason saw the background that you and he at the end he told me, hey, that guy, he looked like he was an astronaut. Was he an astronaut from outer space? Because
that's right, background. That's right. Yeah, broadcasting from Skylab. Welcome. Yeah, this is great. Trying to. I don't normally stream, so I just thought I'd have some fun on the times I do stream. And who knows, I might play it up a little bit because there is some kind of romance involved with thinking that you're away from Earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We had a very famous astronaut just was up there a few years ago. You know what? I'm gonna get in trouble because I'm forgetting his name. anyways, he played the guitar up there. He played David Bowie's what is it?
Major Tom or something
Yeah,
like
Major
that.
Tom, that's right.
Yeah, Space Odyssey,
Hatfield.
right.
Chris Hatfield, yeah. All my
Neat,
Canadians people would kill me if I forgot about. He's our Canadian hero. Chris Hatfield was the astronaut.
Yeah, I remember him playing that. I mean, that made worldwide news. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Love David Bowie too. That's excellent.
Yeah.
So this is a really cool idea you have here, broadcasting each Sunday evening when people are typically winding down. I understand it's in America, it's football playoff time, so that people might be watching football tonight. But since the stream replays, I think it's great because people can learn from our experiences anytime after that. And God bless you for being able to set up all the high-tech wizardry to make it happen.
Oh, thanks, yeah. So anyways, John, let's talk about mental health, mental illness. Tell us your story. What, when were you, and where, what, who, and why, and everything like that.
Yeah, definitely. So I am 51 now, and which means I'm smack dab in Generation X. I was raised by war babies, maybe older boomers who didn't really, quote unquote, believe in mental illness. They just thought you're acting bad. Shape up or ship out. So I actually shipped out when I was 14. I got the boot for the last time. I moved back and forth to school after school. My parents had been divorced. And eventually, by the time I was 14, I was free. I was out on my own, nowhere to go, effectively homeless. I couch surfed. In hindsight, what I put together was that my ADHD was never properly treated back when I was young. So I'm a bit of a hyperactive. I say the word spaz, but I think that's offensive in the UK. So I'll try not to say that word here. But I'm really hyperkinetic kind of person. Grew up, had kids. Had three boys, one wife. Nice little family unit. And I think like many people with mental illnesses may experience, while things are going well, you don't really have time or inclination to feel anxious or depressed, or the stress isn't there to trigger any mental health problems, right? Well, I ended up getting divorced. That did trigger something. So about 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
Oh, and you think, and the divorce kind of act as a stressor, the triggering kind of thing, you think?
I think so. I definitely remember the stress, and I remember having like a psychotic break, if you will, that term psychotic break, that put me in the hospital for a day. Just sat there until they bored me to death in America. They make you wait in the waiting room at hospitals. And a lot of times after about 8 hours of waiting without seeing a doctor, you just get bored. You think, forget it, I'm fine, I'm going to leave. Anyway, it took many trips back to the hospital before one of the doctors said, I think you might have bipolar disorder. I'm like, okay, well, let's try that. Let's take medicine for this and see if that helps. So that's how I got into all this. But up to that point, I had already had my 3 kids, right? So thinking backwards, like, oh, geez, I hope none of them catch it, or whatever the mechanism is for people transferring or becoming mentally ill. And man, it was tough. So my youngest two, all 3 of my sons are over 18 now, so they can speak for themselves if they want to. But my oldest started having problems. And because my relationship with my ex-wife was contentious, immediately she blames Dad. Oh, you're sick because Dad's sick. And it became a really like a blame game. It had, in her mind, nothing to do with the environment with which the kids were raised, or the environment, the stressful environment that happened prior to our divorce. So a lot of those things I think might have affected my oldest son that way, because he was oldest by 5 years. He was the only child for 5 years. So a lot of these things came into play with regards to kind of the dynamic of my mental illness as it pertains to my kids' mental illnesses.
What about, did any in your family, like your parents or any cousins or brothers, or have any signs of mental illness growing up?
I like to think that my parents were crazy. I don't think they necessarily had anything like we may have. Yeah, or they just didn't mention it, or they grew their lives around it. Mm-hmm. Although I did have a cousin, my second cousin. He lost his son and his wife in a house fire. Wow. And it was on the 13th of a month. So he lost it in that way, like Jim Carrey did in that movie 23. He just became super fixated on the number 13. And he kind of took that ride on down to schizophrenia. Like, so he just kept going. He's not entirely functional, but like in the sense that, hey, you gotta get up and get a job and things like that. He can't do that. But he's completely a normal person. If you want to sit and have a cup of coffee with him, you would never know he was sick. So in that case, I would say yes. He is my first experience with any family member that had any kind of mental illness that admitted it or. And that's about the extent of it. He never sought help for it either.
Right. Yeah.
So I figured I have kids. I need to seek help for this. I need to change me, or at least learn more about me, so I can better help my kids function in the future.
And you mentioned about your kids. So obviously you said you had 3 children. And how was the family dynamics with all your children? If one of them is struggling, you're not going what's on, and how did the other kids treat your son who was ill, and then actually treat you as well? Because sometimes a lot of times that people don't realize is that when there's mental illness in a family, sometimes the parents, they really think that it's an obligation for brothers and sisters to help out, to really take the reins and really help out a lot, without even thinking whether they want to or not. And a lot of times, a lot of healthy siblings don't want to get dragged into a caregiver or care, with brothers and sisters. So what was the family dynamics a little bit like with the children?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. In fact, a lot of most anybody don't want to get dragged into it, right? Parents don't want to get dragged into it. Friends don't want to get dragged into it. It's a very uncomfortable thing if you haven't experienced it at all in your life, or your social circles just don't talk about mental illness. It's a bit uncomfortable for someone to come out and say, "Hey, I have this thing." So the younger brothers kind of backed off and tried to be as normal as they could by pursuing normal things. They excelled at sports and science. And I used to be a long-haired rock and roll guy with tattoos and played in bands and things. So they rebelled against that. They became very square. So my 2 youngest are very square, very healthy, very they're like jocks. They're that whole thing. They let their 5-year older brother, right? Remember the first kid, the one that's sick is 5 years older. They kind of just let him be mama's boy because the way mom kicked me out, she created a little parental alienation between us all. So for several years, it was hard to even see my kids. And I thought by taking the high road and just not starting any trouble, that would work out. But it turned out that allowed her to create this whole mythology about how I was the crazy one, how I was sick, and everything is your dad's fault. Which sucked, but I kept at it. My boys and I have a great relationship now. But that whole thing with their older brother, they really didn't want to deal with it. I didn't expect them to, because at this point I'd been sick for a while. I knew that's totally not fair.
Right.
And the mom was fine being a mama's boy's mom to the oldest one. So now later though, I start to wonder if they're I forgot the name of it now, but it used to be called Munchausen's by proxy, where the caregiver actually creates sickness in the person they're caring for, so that the caregiver has something to do with their life. And I sometimes fear that that's going on with my oldest son. Like, he might not be as sick as she's making him out to be. But by him being sick, he gets disability insurance, and he can pay rent on her house and things like that. So I don't want to talk out of turn, but sometimes I do fear that, and it's my prerogative to, because he's my son.
Yeah, I can remember during my depression that I was on the couch and everything, and my brother's 11 years older than me, and he was in high school. He was a football star, and he ended up being a police officer and everything like that. And here I am on the couch dealing with the depression, and it's snowing out, and the driveway is full of snow, and my poor old elderly mother is out shoveling the snow, and he can't understand why I can't get up there and go out into the driveway and really just clear the drive. There's just nothing in you. It's that lack of understanding, right? He couldn't understand. I had all this time dealing, I was 5 years on the couch. I had all this time, and he couldn't understand why I didn't go to the gym or something and become Arnold Schwarzenegger, or something like that. But that laziness, or that when we're so unmotivated, it really comes across hard on us.
Yeah, and what really sucks about the situation you just described, because I've been there, I do it probably once a month at least in my current life, right? Is that not only can other people not understand why we can't get off our ass to go rake the leaves or shovel the snow or whatever, we can't understand it either. Like it's almost as if, dude, do you think I want to live this way? No, I would love to be performing 100% top notch like you all do all the time, right? But it just doesn't happen. I wish I knew how. I'm fine today. I could go shovel snow, right? But there are days where it just hits you, and I could not imagine. I had a younger sister who's passed away about 5 years ago, but up to then we were close. We were like a year apart in age, and she totally got me. No matter what the new diagnosis was, what the new pill of the week was, or whatever, she didn't care. She just loved me. She goes, "Hey, if you ever need a place to be, come up, stay at my house." So that was cool. In my sense, I had that, and I think in many ways, being a dad of a son who has an illness, that can't be overstated. Like having a family member who at least tries to get you or won't judge you. The judgment is just killer. That being judged by your family members sucks.
Yeah. Wow. Now, did you have brothers and sisters yourself?
Yeah, I had one. Well, I had a sister, and we were close. We were what they call Irish twins. I was born, and she popped out just about a year later. So there wasn't much time in between. So we were raised really close. We were in 7th and 8th grade, 8th and 9th grade. We were always a grade apart from each other. And in high school, since I moved a lot around back and forth, I would end up sometimes at a school near her, where she could go to school next to me or that kind of thing. And she would always be like, "Yeah, that's my brother. He's super cool." And da. So she gave me a nice warm path to follow. And it was a big loss when she passed away, for sure. Because now I just don't have that person around. And I think it's great, even though my oldest is more of a mama's boy, so to speak. The younger two would still have his back no matter what.
Yeah.
They just don't. They don't have that opportunity now because mom takes care of everything.
Yeah. So, what would you say your life is like now? Are things under control? Is everything manageable now, or are you still having issues? Or what's your biggest challenges these days?
I hate to say things are under control because I get that feeling every time I think that they've spiraled out of control. Going back to the laying on the couch for a few days, you can't know why it's going to hit, but it does. And it's not a sadness thing. I usually make it pretty well through the holidays, but I collapse after the holidays. It's almost like I'm able to put on a brave front through those couple of weeks, but when it's over, I kind of break down. So it's tough. And like I said, I moved from California to Louisiana to get away from the hustle, the bustle, just that kinetic energy of living in the city. Because I've always been attracted to helping other people. I was managing a 160-unit hotel that housed homeless people. Which, as you can imagine, is really stressful because frankly, I'm not 100% myself.
Right.
So trying to be a caregiver to 160 people who are maybe operating at 50%, that's stressful.
Right.
So I just needed a break.
And you mentioned you were homeless yourself at one time. Is that correct? Or close to it? Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I was technically. I kind of adopted this idea like homeless is a mindset, really. Because although I did not have a address or a house, I did feel like the people I saw on the streets begging for money. I'm not shaming them. I mean, you do what you got to do. If that's the best thing that you can think of, then you're probably in a pretty screwed up place and deserve compassion. I never got to that place. I would just remember Leave It to Beaver, that old black and white TV show?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, they had that one friend of the kids, Eddie Haskell, who's always just giving everyone compliments to the parents, just being really sweet and charming, or so we thought.
Yeah. Oh, Mrs. Cleaver, you look so nice today. That's a wonderful dress. You know?
Right. And that's kind of how I got along. I found I had a certain amount of friends in high school through mostly smoking weed or playing in bands, right? Well, they would bring me over, and maybe I'd go help Steve with his homework on Wednesday night. Then I go to Richie's house on Thursday night to do some other thing. So I kind of sewn together a series of beds.
Right.
So I was never sleeping in the gutter.
Right.
Never had an address. My clothes were all spread about 8 different people's houses. But I managed to graduate, keep my friends, not burn any houses down or kill anybody. Everything worked out all right. But even to this day, I still have that feeling that I'm going to lose my shelter at any moment. So I kind of feel like a scared squirrel, like a squirrel that's just always panicked, like hyper vigilant about what to do next.
Right, yeah.
That's troubling, and it's hard to relax. Yeah. But that said, I'm able to produce podcasts and earn money now and then to buy gear, to eat, and to maintain enough relationships so that I don't literally end up in the street.
Right. You mentioned about the squirrel scattering and everything, and I think life is a lot like I'm out here in front of the Niagara River, and during the day I see ducks and geese and that, and they're in the water and they're floating down and they're swimming down, and everything seems so calm and everything's going good, right, and everything's fine. But underneath, their legs are pedaling like crazy. They're just pedaling, And I think everybody, to a certain degree, is like that. We might look good on the surface, but we're pedaling underneath to stay afloat, kind of thing,
Yeah, that's for sure. And it can't be overstated enough that we never know what another person is going through. I read an interesting thing that talked about siblings, for example. Mm-hmm. And it made this profound statement that, so for example, I have 3 boys, right? Mm-hmm. With the same mom. But as the book I was reading stated, each of those boys had different parents. Because of where the mom and I were in our development as humans, what life was like in the year that they were born, was it politically upheaval, was there a fire down the block, all those different things. So the idea that we're raised by different parents each time, even with the same parents, kind of blew me away. So now I look back and I'm thinking, wow. So anything could be. There are so many possibilities with life that we could be raised by good parents in a bad time, bad parents in a good time. When you start to think of all the possibilities, you really don't know what each person is going through. So as a parent with a kid with mental illness, you really have to keep an open mind and try to back away from the idea that it's stigmatized, right? Mm-hmm. So my thinking was, if you had a kid who was limping, right? As a parent, you wouldn't feel stigma to go have it checked out. You don't know if it's a sprained ankle that will heal itself in 3 days, or a leg that's broken in 4 spots that is you're gonna be not paralyzed, but you'll be affected the rest of your life if it heals in the wrong way. And I wish we had that same kind of openness with regards to the mind. So when your mind isn't acting right, I would like for parents to understand that you have to go check that out, because the kid might have something that they'll get over in 3 days, or they might have something that's a permanent disability if you don't take care of it now. Like if you just let it go. Because nobody's going to let a kid walk around with a leg broken in 4 spots, right?
And
so
I
the same. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with the main difference, a lot of people talk about mental illness and they'll say, well, it's just like a physical illness like diabetes or heart disease or cancer. But I say absolutely not. I said, because when our mind, like you said, you have a broken arm or a broken leg, you can see the blood, you can see the bone fracture, and you could say to yourself, your brain tells you, go to the hospital and get a cast, get it looked at, get it fixed. But with mental illness, the thing is that it's our mind doesn't know we're ill. We could be dealing hyper with diabetes, or we can be dealing with bipolar and hypermania and schizophrenic voices and everything, and we're paranoid. But our brain doesn't know we're ill. and so it doesn't
That's
seek
right.
help.
That's right.
It doesn't seek help, and that's the main difference between physical illness and mental illness, and that's why really a lot of times mental illness is cruel because it affects the mind. It's cruel, and the mind doesn't know it's sick, and the thing is a lot of times with even with bipolar, schizophrenia, and that the thing is that we can right now, me and you, we're logical. We're in reality and we're logical. So we can get along. We can talk because we're logical. The thing is, when somebody has a mental illness, a lot of times they're paranoid or something, and they're not logical. And logical and illogical does not mix. They're totally opposite. And the person who is out of logic can't understand the person in logic, and the person in logic can't understand the person who's out of logic. And that's what, in a nutshell, why mental illness is different than physical illness.
For sure. And the leg foot example, like the sprain compared to the break, is easy for a doctor to determine. Much easier, obviously, than mental illnesses are. Mm-hmm. But the point in the metaphor would be that you still have to go get it checked out. Just go have it looked at. What's it going to hurt to have it looked at? There's a term based like what you're just talking about. It's a no-so, no-show. Have you ever heard that term?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's A-N-O-S-O, and then no-show, G-N-O-S-I-A. A no-so, no-show. It's a mental condition that literally means in Latin, lacking insight. Right. So you just don't know what you don't know. You can't know because you don't know. And a lot of people have that, especially people with like narcissistic personality disorders and things like that, because they just refuse to see it. It's not a stubbornness. It's an inability, right? And I think that's the case, especially with a kid. A kid will never know that he's mentally ill, right? And I throw the term ill around because it sounds like, hey, you can get better, and we can get better. The doctors are always claiming, but that's incurable. You'll have that for life. I don't know. That's kind of damaging, I think, when they say things like that, because if you have something for life, the implication that is bad. Yeah. But it's not all bad. It just means you
just gotta learn to live with it and cope and deal. And you gotta deal with the card you get, right? And try to make that's right. Lemonade out of lemons, or you kind of thing. Tell me, were you prescribed medication? Were you ever on medication? Did you go off? Did you relapse, or any between you? For sure. So tell us your medication story.
Yeah, for sure. So the earlier on, as soon as I found weed when I was young, I don't know, not that young, 7th grade maybe or something like that. I tried to get high by, I think 8th or 9th grade, I finally figured out how to smoke weed to where I got high. And I just want to put this out there for anybody that's a parent of a kid that is on drugs and they think, he's a drug addict. Well, I've never met anybody who's turned to drugs that was not already mentally ill.
Right.
I was already mentally ill. I was trying to stop something. I was trying to calm my ADHD.
Exactly. It's called self-medicating, right? And
exactly.
And that's why, John, we can never judge anybody. We should never be judging. I mean, I live a couple hours from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I go into the city, and you'll see all kinds of homeless people there, and But the thing is that if people's hearing voices or delusional or paranoid, and they have no idea what it is. I mean, God, most people never know what schizophrenia is, right? And you think, what's going on here? You never come to the conclusion that you're mentally ill. You just know something's going on, and so you try to self-medicate, whether it be through alcohol or drugs, and that's why we can never judge somebody, because you know what? We've never walked in another person's shoes. We've only walked in our own shoes.
Yeah. So the parents out there, if your kids are on drugs, they didn't want to be on drugs. It's not. Typically, it's not. I'm trying to fit in with those people. Sometimes it is, sure. But a lot of times there's an underlying need for a change of the mind. So anyway, that was my first drug, so to speak. Because when I was younger, my parents took me to one psychiatrist. They said, "Well, we would like to see you next, Mom, by yourself." She never went back. No, we never went back to that doctor. So here I am by middle school in America, 8th, 9th, 7th, 8th, something like that. Getting high all the time. Figured out how to get alcohol. So my earlier medications throughout all high school were not true pharmaceutical medications. They were purely weed, alcohol, we call it crank, cocaine, acid, I mean, pretty much anything that didn't involve a needle. As I grew older, I started tapering those down. I'm not sure if my mind settled itself just out of maturity, which thank God, because I mean, there was crazy stories. I'm doing a podcast just of my crazy stories because I don't even believe half of them. Just weird stuff happens when you're all like that. Anyway, fast forward to when I got divorced again. When I got divorced, only got divorced once. Yeah. I went to the doctor and I started taking meds for bipolar mania. Now, when you have bipolar mania, they don't typically at first give you any antidepressants, which kind of sucks because that was the main driving force for me to go to the hospital. I was really sad and distraught and hopeless. And they're like, well, how's your sleep? Like, not good. Let's get you to sleep first. And they give me Seroquel, which just knocks you out big time. They're like, okay, this isn't great because I'm used to being hyper, and being knocked out was not working for me. Went and had that changed. I went on Lamictal, which is another popular one for bipolar people, lamotrigine. And that's they also give that to people with epilepsy. So it basically stops spasms in your brain. Marginal. So the last time I made a list about a month ago because I was seeing a new psychiatrist and I gave her a list. There's like 10, 12 different meds on there that have not been successful up to now. I don't know the brand names, but olanzapine and all the basic ones for those. None of them, however, were antidepressants. So almost all the meds I've taken were antipsychotics.
And I think what you're describing there, your meds and everything. Unfortunately, you mentioned the big list of drugs. Unfortunately, it takes trial and error before you find something that works in that. And the thing is that you might be on a drug for 3 to 6 months before you know that it's working. And if it's not working, then you got to switch. And that's why we're in a marathon here. We're not in a sprint, right? That's why the length of our illnesses go on and on and on is because that's one of the reasons, because we need to find out what medication works. But unfortunately, it takes time to do that.
Yeah, and it is like good detective work. You're not pursuing what will work. You're really pursuing and trying to eliminate what doesn't work. And it's really the best a doctor can do. Doctors are human. They get the diagnosis wrong sometimes. They get the meds wrong. If the diagnosis is wrong, the meds will be wrong. And you can't really blame them. It's not really a blame situation. There's not a fault. Show me a doctor who's purposefully giving people the wrong meds. I don't think that exists, right? They're trying their best, and we're trying our best. So when you get to a therapist or talk to your psychiatrist about the medication, I think it's so critical to let them know everything that you're taking, legal or otherwise. Let them just give them the whole picture. They're not going to judge you. They really do want to help. And I curse doctors all the time just because I'm moody. Sometimes my mood changes and I just curse them. But right now, I'll state unequivocally, they are not trying to kill us. They're not representing big pharma. Things just are the way they are, and they're doing their best. I went through all those and eliminated most of them. Right now, currently, I take Concerta. My theory being, let me address my ADHD, because I found that when I'm on point, when I'm on track, when I'm doing things that are productive that I like to do, I don't really have time to be depressed or anxious. So I work with my psychiatrist and said, hey, let's go back and talk about this ADHD. Let's set the bipolar aside and let's talk about the ADHD. So now I'm on ADHD drugs. And seems to be fine. Keeps me focused, keeps me hopeful that my plan is working. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, very good. So tell me, some of the parents, what are some of the tips that you can tell, or what's important, or how have your life changed since you've had a mental illness, since your son, and that what are some of your rules or your things?
Number one for a parent, top of the list. Without a doubt, always get a second opinion. Mm-hmm. Like I'm not saying shop around until you find a doctor that says your kid's fine. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that. Don't do that. 'Cause I can imagine people saying, "Yeah, I'll just go get a fifth or a sixth opinion," and until the guy says, "No, that's fine. You're the one with the problem. Talking all these weird doctors." No. So get a second opinion. Try to go outside of your normal caregiver model, because a lot of times if you get an opinion from one doctor at clinic A and the second opinion is from the doctor down the hallway at the same clinic, they might practice the same mode. The doctors might talk to each other. They might, I'm not going to say they're in cahoots, but if they're all of the same organization, they might treat your illness or see those symptoms the same way. So if at all possible, and I know it's hard because for one, it's hard to get anybody to see a shrink. For two, it's hard to find a shrink you can afford, and let alone a second or third or fourth opinion. So that's all money, time, and effort. But it's really worth it because a wrong diagnosis could set you back 1 year, 3 years, 10 years, 15 years, until you've exhausted all the meds and therapy for that particular disorder.
Absolutely. And like you say, the diagnosis, it takes a while, right? I mean, it's not easy to get a great diagnosis. So I mean, you go to a psychiatrist, they read things, but it's not as if you're seeing them every day for 2 hours, right? I mean, you might get an appointment every, scarce appointment. It's hard to know what's going on with a person. And I think that's what's probably frustrating for a lot of parents with mentally ill children, is that the parents a lot of times seem to get alienated, or the parents know what's going on the best with their child, but they have, because of confidentiality or whatever you want to talk about, the parent knows the child better, but they don't really get what they want or the understanding, and they're not even sometimes allowed to have input. And I always say, we do have a homeless crisis in North America, and and I always say that I bet you for every homeless person that's out there, you've had parents who've tried to get them help, whether it be for an addiction, whether it be for mental illness, and it just all fell through, and it was so hard, and the system fails us that they end up on the streets because the families, because of certain characteristics or violence or whatever, can't cope anymore, and they're on the street. But I'm telling you, everybody who is homeless has parents, and I'm sure in their lifetime they've tried to help so much. It's just the problem is just sometimes overwhelming for society, for individuals, the stigma, and it's not easy answers,
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of times, I think as parents, we try to focus on the behavior instead of the cause of the behavior. In other words, if I was a hyper kid and I would just run around and scribble on all the walls and permanent marker and tip the bed upside down and all that, my parents would focus on clean up the marker. Quit turning your bed upside. So they would focus on the end results. Of course, you have to, especially if you've got other siblings. As a parent, you're like, well, I've got to maintain some sense of normalcy for the kids that aren't crazy. So having a kid with any kind of disorder, regardless, across the whole spectrum, and that's the other thing too. This is why I say get a second opinion. Anxiety, depression, bipolar, ADHD, all of these have very similar symptoms. But they all have vastly different treatment options. So the idea that a parent focuses too heavily on the behavior instead of the cause of the behavior, I think that's important. And I wish we could just kind of take away the idea that there's a blame or guilt involved, because clearly it comes down to the parents. As a parent, I accept this responsibility to say, is it nurture or nature? Well, as a parent, you're responsible for both nurture and nature. It's your DNA, and you raised them in your house. So as a parent, you have to stand up and say, whoa, okay, I'll take responsibility for this. But you don't have to take responsibility for their behavior. Kind of look beyond the behavior. If they're smoking pot in their room and pot's illegal where you are, or if they're drag racing or whatever they're doing you think is risky or unnecessary, start to wonder, like maybe they have other issues we haven't talked about. And remove the stigma, at least in your own mind as a parent. Just think about it with an open mind. You don't have to tell your friends about it. You don't have to do anything. It doesn't have to be a public thing. But I think it has to be more than just focusing on the results of the disorder.
John, tell me a little bit about, have you ever been involved in organizations or organizations that helped you joined, or tell me how
Definitely.
so you didn't go alone. How did you reach out to, and was help there?
There in a big city. I live in San Francisco. Is much like Toronto. Just the inner city. It's just a downtown city. Tons of resources. The one that saved my life. In fact, San Francisco gets a lot of crap for being too liberal and all this. Well, they also have lots of services for people that are dead broken on the streets. I had just enough in me to get to a clinic. They helped me. They sent me over across the street the next morning. That lady saw me, gave me meds. I don't know if they were the right meds at the time, but I felt like, cared for. There's hope. That took a weight off. That night, I looked on the internet and found a place called, in America, it's called DBSA, Depression Bipolar Support Alliance. And what that is what they call peer support groups. They hold meetings in San Francisco anyway, about 2, maybe 3 times a week in the basement of a hospital. And there's no doctors. It's just us. Set in a big circle, no table, everybody facing each other, and you got to go around the circle. Hi, my name's John. I feel like crap today. I'd like to share later. And then each person kind of puts a flag in whether they want to share. Then you start to share. And then when it's my turn, I say, okay, I feel like crap because my boss is down on me and this or that or the other. So that's called peer support. And the DBSA really saved my life. I wanted to walk to the Golden Gate Bridge and just jump off. But it was too far. I got bored. I got tired. I'm like, then I found the meeting, and so I credit DBSA with saving my life in particular.
I remember when I was first diagnosed and early in my illness, I joined a group called the Discovery Program, and I actually attended it while I was in hospital, and then when I was an outpatient, I attended it for a long time. However, probably for the first 6 months, I was just couldn't get out of bed, or just couldn't. My dad would drive me to the falls, and no problem for the group. But I had very supportive parents, but I just didn't have the ambition or anything to go, right? And then they said, well, we're not going to keep calling you. If you're not going to come, you're not going to, we're not going to bother with you. And so I started going there, and like you said, it was in a circle, and it's a great place to kind of build friendships. You get to know people, and you get rooting for them. You get, glad for them. You talk. I can remember a fellow and I laughing. We were laughing about our delusions, our stories, what we did when we're out of reality, and the leaders of the group, the social workers, laughed and said, it's kind of great that you guys can laugh at yourselves, kind of what you've done, and because a lot of things are funny. I mean, this guy, he would call the police and say there was an emergency or something, and he'd hang up, and the police would come to the door, and he'd let them in, and they'd say, "Did you call the police or whatever?" And he said, "No, nothing's wrong." Just
And it's interesting that you can remember those things. And you hit on that point. I mean, the point really can't be overstated. That once you find people that are like you. Instantly, even if you never went to another group again, you now know definitively you're not alone. There are definitely other people like you, and that is so important. A lot of people do it with church or school activities or civic groups. Well, we don't really have those. I mean, personally, I'm not a church person. I said you went to church, but if you don't have a church, like where do you go if you have a mental illness? Well, if you're in a big city, in America, we also have North America Mental Illness or something like that. NAMI, you familiar with them?
National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. Yeah.
There you go. Are they in Canada too? Do you have a Canada?
There might be some. They were trying to come in Canada, and there may be some groups in Canada. We had the Schizophrenia Society of Canada. We have the Canadian Mental Health Association that is all across the thing there. But no, I used to go to conferences when I had the magazine, and I know NAMI fairly well, the organizations, and it's a parent-run group, and that's trying to help the mentally ill and that.
Yeah, it's also strange because even though I credit DBSA with saving my life, the first time I had gone 10 years earlier, I sat in that group and I'm like, these people aren't me. I'm not this. These people are really crazy. These people are old and broken. Well, 10 years later, apparently either the group dynamic changed, or I was now what I used to consider old and broken, and it really clicked. So don't give up if you find a peer support group. that will have you try to be there. Try to check it out. I know a lot of people have anxiety issues and don't like to go out in the real world. But these groups also exist online. And like you and I are talking, we're talking in real time. I can see your smile. I can see your eyes, right? Like when you nod and you respond to me, we're in tune with each other. We're tuned right now. And you can't get that through an email. You can't get that through a social media post. But you can get it one-on-one through video chat, or even Twitch, if you're a gamer. I don't know if you game or your kids game, but sometimes I think if you just do something with other people in real time, regardless if it's on the internet or in real life, it makes a big difference. Isolating yourself is never good. So definitely credit to DBSA and NAMI for putting together peer support groups.
Yeah, very good. Well, John, you know what? We've been going for 45 minutes here, and I think that we're going to wrap it up shortly. But I just wanted to give people a little talk about your podcast and give them your website and anything else you'd like to mention or in the top of your mind. Just
cool.
What do you want? What would you like parents to know out there? What would you like people to know?
That's the first thing. To reiterate what we said earlier, if you're a parent of a kid with a mental illness or is addicted to drugs or something like that, find out the underlying cause. Get a second or a third opinion. Know that as a parent, you're not alone. Like DBSA had a parent and a friend support group, so that the parents and friends. I poked in on one of those ones. They make fun of us too, which is totally okay. They're not mean about it, but they also need a place where they can be to share their frustrations, right? So if you're a parent of somebody that's suffering from a mental illness, look for peer support groups. Like I don't know. I think alcoholics have a different group like that too, like a one for friends and family. Anyway, that exists. Yeah, and if you have to keep it in your own sphere of influence, you don't have to tell the world. If you're embarrassed about it, that's cool. And that's really why I use a pseudonym in America. For my podcast. Like I don't go by my real name. I'm not trying to be famous. But I also didn't want my employers to find out I was doing a podcast about bipolar. So that's why it's called. That's why I use the name Johnny Emotions because that's cool. Remember the band Cheap Trick?
Yeah, I know them. I wasn't a big rock fan. I'm more country. John, I got to tell you, I was country before country was cool.
Country's been cool for a long time, man. So anyway, there's a drummer in Cheap Trick named Bun E. Carlos. His middle initial was E. And I'm like, oh, well, my middle initial is E, so I'll be John E. something. And I'm like, oh, Motions, John E. Motions. How clever. Anyway, so that's why I operate under a pseudonym. I just don't want employers to find me. And I also call the show Bipolar Style because I'm always like, why does it have to be a disorder? Why can't it just be a thinking style? So I rarely use the word disorder because I think it's offensive. 20, 30, 40 years from now, they'll change the name of it anyway. So just because we live right now, I don't think it's fair to call everything we suffer with a disorder. So that's what I do. That's how and why I don't use my name.
And I just want to wrap up here, John. Just to ask you, how has social media affected you? I mean, like these days we have Twitter and Facebook and all this. And has it been helpful? Has it been sometimes frustrating, or you're still out not juggling? You're kind of still weighing things, or how has social media been for you?
I worked in broadcasting in the early 90s, and I worked for a high-tech TV show. We displayed high-tech products. So because of that, people would send us all these cool things. But we had the very first browser. So I've been on the internet forever. Friendster, MySpace, all those old social networks. But I think of social media like a diet, and I think social media is like sugar. It's delicious. But you can't survive on social media alone. I think a lot of kids get depressed now, not because the social media, but because the social media is pushing out all of the healthy things. So I don't think social media unto itself is bad. I think avoiding your real life friends in person is the thing that we're missing these days. So I try to focus on that. I try to limit which social media platforms I play on because you can just get lost trying to pursue all of them. I stick to a couple main ones: Twitter, or Instagram or whatever. But I do like it. It's a great tool. I liken it to a parking lot where you put your flyers for your podcast. Like I used to be in a band, and we used to put our flyers on people's cars. Well, and the same thing when you have a podcast, you have to promote somewhere. So I think of Twitter as a parking lot where I put the flyers up and chat with people and have a beer while we're waiting for the concert to start. I think of it in that kind of metaphor. I don't dislike it. It's fine. But in measured doses. Like think of it as sugar, and you can't live off sugar.
Very good. Well, John, I'm going to thank you for coming on to helping.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me, man. I look forward to seeing more here.
And just before I let you go, before I go off, I just want to once again share with you folks here is that to Cry Dry Tear, Bill McPhee's Journey of Hope and Recovery with Schizophrenia. You can find all information on our social media and on our webcast and everything by going, and you can download the first chapter actually free if you just go to billmcphee.ca. Let me put the website up there for you a second, so you see there www.billmcphee.ca. You can learn more about me. If you'd like to be a guest like John here was tonight, just find me, track me down through social media, or go to my website, billmcphee.ca. You'll see how you can get a hold of me. And we're going to end it here, but thanks a lot, John, for appearing, and the best of luck in the future, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate you, and thanks for everybody for watching.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.